Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're jumping into something that, let's be honest, affects pretty much all of us. Educational assessment. Report cards, big exams, all of it. It's a world we think we know, but it's often, well, completely misunderstood. So let's unpack it.
And right off the bat, let's just ask the big questions here. How do we really measure what someone has learned? Do those letter grades actually tell the whole story? And what's the point of all this testing anyway? Stick with me, because we're going to dig into some surprising answers.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the big why, the whole purpose of evaluation. Then we'll get into 2 different ways to measure learning. After that, 3 key approaches to assessment. We'll see how that all comes together in a bigger, more complete approach, and we'll wrap up with the actual tools teachers have in their toolkit.
First up, why do we even do evaluations? I know, it seems obvious, right? To get a grade. But the thinking on this has changed a lot. We've shifted from just passing judgment to using it as a tool for actual improvement.
I want you to picture the old-school classroom. You know the scene. Teacher up front, students in neat little rows, and then a massive final exam that decides everything. That was the traditional way. But the modern view? It's a total flip. Now the focus is on the entire learning process itself, on creativity, on individual needs, with the teacher acting more like a coach or a guide, not just a lecturer.
And here's the really crucial part. Evaluation isn't just a one-way street for grading students. It's a feedback loop, a huge one. Yeah, it helps students see where they can improve, but it also gives teachers these invaluable insights into their own teaching. It tells them what's working and what's falling flat. It's a tool for literally everyone in the room to get better.
So, if evaluation is this big feedback loop, how do we actually go about measuring performance? Well, this brings us to 2 totally different philosophies for interpreting a student's score. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, first, we've got the one most of us are probably super familiar with, norm-referenced evaluation. This is, plain and simple, grading on a curve. Your performance isn't measured against some fixed standard. It's measured against how everybody else in the room did. It's all about your rank in the group.
Right, and this whole approach is built on the assumption of a bell curve, that you'll always have a few high flyers, a few people who struggle, and most everyone else will land somewhere in the middle. But critics say, hang on, learning isn't a random lottery, it's intentional. With this system, your grade could totally change just based on who happens to be sitting next to you.
So the other side of the coin is criterion-referenced evaluation. Here, it doesn't matter one bit what your classmates do. Your score is compared to a clear, preset standard. The only question is, have you mastered the material? Yes or no?
And honestly, the driving test is the absolute perfect analogy for this. You don't get graded on a curve against all the other drivers that day, right? Of course not. You just have to prove you've mastered the skills to be a safe driver. And as this points out, in this model, it's totally possible for every single student to get an A.
Okay, so we've got the why and we've got the how. Now let's look at 3 different approaches to assessment that are really about timing and purpose. This is a super helpful way to frame what's actually happening in the classroom.
This table just lays it out so clearly. Assessment of learning is that big final exam. It's summative, a snapshot in time. Assessment for learning happens during the process. It's formative, giving you feedback along the way to help you improve. But then there's assessment as learning. This is where the student gets in the driver's seat, reflecting on their own progress. It's a journey from judgment to guidance to genuine empowerment.
So how do you take all these different ideas and actually put them together in a way that works? Well, that leads us to a much more holistic, integrated way of thinking about evaluation. And it's called Continuous and Comprehensive Evaluation, or CCE for short. The whole goal here is to make evaluation a natural, ongoing, and, stress-free part of learning. It's not about one single, high-stakes moment, but about a constant, supportive process. And we can kind of pull this apart into 2 main ideas. The continuous bit means that assessment is happening all the time, during class, as you go, and also at the end of a unit. And the comprehensive bit, this is huge. It means we're looking beyond just academic subjects, the scholastic stuff, to include things like life skills, attitudes, and creativity, the co-scholastic side of things.
So, one of the best tools for this kind of comprehensive assessment is the portfolio. And no, this is not just a messy folder of old homework. A portfolio is a carefully chosen, curated collection of work that literally tells the story of a student's journey. You can see their growth, their breakthroughs, and their reflections over time.
What's really cool is that the act of making a portfolio is a massive learning process in itself. You have to plan it out, gather the work, but the most important step is number 3, reflect. This is what gets you into metacognitive thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying you're thinking about your own thinking. And that skill is what separates deep learning from just memorizing facts.
Okay, last section. Let's look at the actual practical tools that teachers can use to get this kind of rich, deep data about a student beyond the typical multiple choice test.
Sometimes it's as simple as just watching. Seriously, a good teacher is constantly observing, watching how a student interacts during group work, on the playground, in the classroom. This gives them incredibly authentic, real-time information that you could just never get from a test. And then, rating scales help give some structure to those observations. By using a scale, maybe a 1 to 5, a teacher can start to systematize their opinions about certain traits, which turns those qualitative judgments into data that's a bit more consistent and easier to track.
The cumulative record is basically the student's whole story in one place. It brings together everything from grades and attendance to health notes and major achievements. It's a living document that helps teachers see the whole child and track their development across their entire school journey.
The interview is another powerful tool, just a direct, purposeful conversation. It's one of the best ways to get inside a student's head, to understand how they think, to see their unique logic, and to spot any roadblocks they might be hitting.
And finally, there are anecdotal records. You can think of these like candid snapshots. They're just brief, objective notes a teacher jots down about a specific, spontaneous moment. They capture these little flashes of personality or insight that a formal test would 100% always miss.
And that brings us full circle, right back to a really powerful question. After looking at all of this, what's the ultimate goal here? Are we just trying to measure and rank students, or are we trying to use these tools to understand them, to guide them, and ultimately to help build better, more reflective, and more empowered learners? Maybe the biggest shift of all is seeing evaluation not as the finish line, but as the starting point for growth.